Ooh, this is sad. Here you have someone pretending to be a tough guy turn out to be just a second banana for Joy Behar, the poster child for Trump derangement. Sadly, Bob is now just another gibbering, enfeebled ninny, surrounded by inept relatives as he frets about how Trump's in power and he's not. See, Trump's rise coincides with De Niro's decline. And the person who knows it most is De Niro. He's a fine example of how not to turn loss into bitterness. There are plenty of people who don't like Trump, but don't let it warp their minds or their ability to speak aloud among grown-ups or The View. But the Schiffs and De Niros of the world are emotionally damaged by politics to a point where they can't even assess their own emotions.
What do you get when Fox News pint-sized provocateur Greg Gutfeld locks horns with Robert De Niro, Hollywood's grumpiest oracle of doom? A verbal smackdown so merciless it made Raging Bull look like a Zen retreat. De Niro tried to flex, again, but all he had was outrage and that squinty, "I'm deeply disappointed in America" face. Gutfeld? He came in wielding sarcasm like a samurai sword. No yelling, no grandstanding, just surgical satire that left Bobby flailing like a method actor lost without a script. This wasn't a debate. This was a roast wrapped in facts, served medium rare with a side of ouch.
Last night, an elderly, confused man went missing in New York. Luckily, a band of self-satisfied elitists found him babbling on the street, threw some pants on him, gave him a stage.
Oh my God.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
Enter Gutfeld, the guy who looks like he just got kicked off a Reddit thread for being too blunt, and still logged back in with better material. Against all odds and Hollywood egos, he delivered what most late-night hosts only pretend to, an unfiltered, devastating critique of celebrity sanctimony. His weapon of choice? That dry, acidic wit that turns pretense into punchlines and self-importance into kindling. De Niro didn't even know he'd been dismantled until the audience stopped clapping and started laughing for the other guy.
Robert De Niro graced the knitting circle in hell known as The View, where he tried to link random thoughts into a sentence. Joy was there to wind him up, since he's played some of the most unredeemable characters.
You have played some of the most really unredeemable characters. Travis Bickle. Travis Bickle was a psychopathic taxi driver. Jake LaMotta, who used to beat his wife, and he was in the Raging Bull. Is Trump worse than they are?
To me.
There was a time when De Niro inspired awe. You watched him in mafia flicks and worry he might actually whack you through the screen. But now, he's less the Godfather and more Get Off My Lawn, the musical. He doesn't speak anymore, he growls. He doesn't comment, he condemns. It's all so very serious, so very theatrical, and so wildly out of touch it belongs in a parody skit, not a primetime interview. He's turned brooding into a lifestyle brand. Call it grumpyism, ideal for shouting political slogans into the void.
Being an actor is tough. For how does one handle real life without a script? Not equipped to think analytically, you're left powerless when observing your own predictions about life turn out wrong. It's not supposed to be this way, De Niro thinks. Only the cool guys get to win. Sorry, Bob. That's only in the movies, but at least you'll always have joy.
Meanwhile, Gutfeld needed no spotlight. Just a mic and a mild breeze to knock De Niro's towering ego over like a phone prop. While Bobby puffed out his chest like a disgruntled drama teacher, Greg leaned back and observed a once great actor morphing into a professional scowler. Gutfeld didn't rage, he raised an eyebrow. He didn't shout, he smirked. It turns out that when your entire political commentary is just yelling democracy from a yacht, it's hard to earn sympathy from people counting pennies at the pump. This wasn't a brawl, it was a masterclass in comedic precision.
It kills me. Talk about persuasive. Really, I was on the fence about Trump, but then I decided to really listen to one of the great generational leaders of American pop culture. And the clenched fists at the end, that really drove it home. It looked like he was pressing a 2-pound weight in a Jenny Craig commercial.
Oh my God.
Look at it again. It's so cute. It's like he found out the restaurant serves Jell-O, or that he won a $10 scratch off, or he scored a cameo in Jersey Shore, or he had his first #2 in a week.
Gutfeld's genius wasn't in outshouting De Niro. It was in letting De Niro collapse under the weight of his own contradictions. The hypocrisy, blinding. Here's a man who hasn't seen a Walmart since Taxi Driver. lecturing the working class on moral clarity. Bobby delivers his diatribes like soap opera monologues, high volume, low substance. Meanwhile, Gutfeld skewers the performance like a critic reviewing a Broadway flop. How fascinating, he muses, that a man who pretends for a living now believes he's qualified to tell you how to live. The truth? De Niro's not America's conscience. He's a nostalgic ringtone trapped in a smartphone era.
Yeah, poor Bob. You know, he's like a star whose girlfriend dumps him for a bigger star who's in the White House while you're in Dirty Grandpa. Oh, man. So now the resistance is reduced to applauding tantrums. Who knew De Niro's lasting role would be irrelevant gas bag pleasing irrelevant peers? And he's doing this as Trump organizes a summit. Not a war, a summit. And you got to wonder, if it were President Hillary, Bob's choice, would you actually have a summit or would you have a war? But forget deeds. What matters is adulation received from an emotional display before a packed sea of millionaire lemmings. So who cares that Trump meets with North Korea? It's no meet the parents, right?
And when Gutfeld held up the mirror, De Niro didn't like what he saw. Not Travis Bickle, not Vito Corleone. Just a cranky millionaire in a tuxedo, scolding the public like they were extras in his latest political PSA. The beauty of Gutfeld's roast was that he barely had to write it. De Niro supplied the script. All Greg had to do was recite it back with a touch of sarcasm and a wink. The audience knew the difference between genuine conviction and celebrity cosplay. One was grounded, the other, yelling at clouds from a gated compound.
Niro clearly has thought about this. More so than his career, his choice of roles is now down to cinnamon and lobster. He was then asked about the Trump kids. At least he doesn't want my kids to take this the wrong way.
I don't want my kids to take this the wrong way, but if my kids did what these kids did, I wouldn't want to be related to them. I would disown them.
And oh, the crowd, how they ate it up. They weren't outraged, they were relieved. Finally, someone said what the rest of us were too polite to, that Hollywood's emperors are still wearing the loudest clothes, but they're entirely see-through. Gutfeld played it cool while De Niro boiled with second-hand virtue. The actor tried to emote, Gutfeld used facts. The actor tried to lecture, Gutfeld cracked jokes. And in that contrast, a legacy unraveled, not from hate, but from exposure. De Niro became the punchline in his own production, and the audience was already on to the next act.
What a sad end for a great actor. He went from Raging Bull to this. You know, De Niro kind of represents Hollywood in the sense that they realize that they're losing influence with the public, and that's what's generating the emotional response. They've never felt less important.
There's a poetic irony in watching De Niro, the man who once defined cinematic rage, get politely dismantled by a man who treats politics like improv night at a dive bar. Gutfeld didn't shout, didn't insult. He simply showed up with truth, humor, and the timing of a sniper. The tragedy. Everything he said had been obvious for years. De Niro just happened to be the last one to get the memo. Gutfeld didn't assassinate a legacy. He held up a neon sign that read expired and let the crowd do the rest.
Before I get to you, let's go to, I think he was in Canada, Toronto, opening a restaurant or doing something, and this is what he had to say.
And I just want to make a note of apology for the idiotic behavior of my president. It's a disgrace. And I apologize to Justin Trudeau, and the other people at the G7. It's disgusting.
You know, I actually feel bad for him because I think he's one of those people that has never been emotionally recovered from 2016. This is a guy who's got serious Trump.
And so the roles reversed. The actor became the act, and the audience became the critics. De Niro faded into the usual Hollywood fog, grumpy, red-faced, and muttering into a camera. Gutfeld. He walked away grinning, having landed the softest knockout in late-night history. The lesson. Legacy isn't about how loud you are, it's about whether anyone's still listening. And America. They've tuned out the tirades and turned up the satire. De Niro thought he was dropping truth bombs. Instead, he dropped his relevance like an outdated script, and Gutfeld was just there to roll the credits.
Jesse, I find that he's smartest when they drop his audio. But, you know, it's kind of sad because you can see, like, people who are stuck in some kind of, I don't know, derangement, they can't see it themselves. And they're not surrounded by people telling them that they have a problem. And they lack self-awareness because everybody either tells them they're wonderful or wants to sell them cocaine. So he has no clue what he's doing. And he's upset over the emotional nature. His anger is emotional about Trump. It's nothing.
Here's the sting. De Niro didn't fall because of age or career fatigue. He fell because he mistook fame for infallibility. He believed the spotlight still guaranteed respect. But Gutfeld reminded us that in the real world, yelling political slogans from a penthouse suite doesn't make you noble, it makes you background noise. The takedown wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, it was cathartic. A garden hose level roast that took down a sandcastle of self-importance. And in the end, it wasn't Gutfeld who humiliated De Niro. It was De Niro who humiliated himself simply by thinking the script still worked. But the world's moved on, and Bobby's still yelling at ghosts.
He is the most boring interview. He used to sell his movies on Leno and Letterman, and it was like watching a WNBA game. You just were just bored to death. All of a sudden, Trump became president, and he started saying things, I want to punch the president in the face. You know, he's a crooked piece of... And then all of a sudden, De Niro became interesting during his media tours. And that's the only way now he can get publicity for his film, is by cursing and saying...
Here's the sting. De Niro didn't fall because of age or career fatigue. He fell because he mistook fame for infallibility. He believed the spotlight still guaranteed respect. But Gutfeld reminded us that in the real world, yelling political slogans from a penthouse suite doesn't make you noble, it makes you background noise. The takedown wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, it was cathartic. A garden hose level roast that took down a sandcastle of self-importance. And in the end, it wasn't Gutfeld who humiliated De Niro. It was De Niro who humiliated himself simply by thinking the script still worked. But the world's moved on, and Bobby's still yelling at ghosts.